Well, looks like we're moving to fabulous Las Vegas. And I don't know if you noticed, but I don't got the kind of skin tone that fares easily in the desert. Better put a lot of sunscreen on it. Gotta make sure it don't burn anything. Welcome to the Circus Sketch. And I'm telling you, I gotta put a lot of this stuff on for it to even start to take effect. Well, you just go ahead and skip this part. Go to the show. I'll be done in a little bit. All right. Welcome to the Circus Catch. Jordan Wright with you here as always, and all I can say is wow, what a week in sports. We're just hours away from the NFL draft. Round one of both the NBA and NHL playoffs are really heating up, no pun intended. And there have been some stellar performances in the baseball world as well. Jackson Cochran will be joining me momentarily, but before I bring him on, I got a riff for just a little bit. I'd like to bring up the elephant in the room, Stomper the elephant, that is, as well as the rest of the A's organization. The A's announced on Wednesday that they're planning on leaving the city of Oakland after calling it home for over half a century. Reportedly, the A's are closing on a deal in principle to build a new ballpark in Las Vegas for around $1 billion. Following the Raiders from the Bay to the desert, the team is set to have their new ballpark up and running by 2027, although the team could move there sooner by playing their home games at their AAA affiliate, Las Vegas Aviators Ballpark. So where does this leave the fans? Well, I'm certainly not coming on here speaking for all A's fans, but I will say this. No matter where you think the blame lies, the ones who got screwed in this deal are the fans. Allow me to explain. For nearly 15 years, the A's have desperately attempted to get a new stadium deal done, and for nearly 15 years, there has been little to no progress to make this happen. You can blame the city of Oakland for not approving any of the proposals sent in by the team. You can blame Major League Baseball for restricting the A's revenue share. You can blame Rob Manfred for having a false vision of what it takes for the A's to return to being successful. You can blame the San Francisco Giants for blocking the A's from moving anywhere in the Bay Area outside of Oakland. I can and do partially blame all of them, but the biggest villain here is A's owner John Fisher. First of all, chanting "sell the team" will get you kicked out of an A's game right away. No questions asked. Fans hate this man with a passion. But if you were to own the A's, why would you sell the team? You're receiving revenue shares simply by stating that your team is too poor to compete with some of the big market teams, as far as like getting free agent contracts go. Being in Oakland certainly doesn't help with that. Oakland is a small market town that couldn't hang on to the Raiders or the Warriors, and now in the span of less than a decade, they've lost 3 major sports franchises. However, let's go back to 2020. The A's had major up-and-coming stars under club control for multiple years. Matt Olson, Matt Chapman, Chad Pinder, Sean Murphy, Chris Bassett, just to name a few. In 2020, the A's won the AL West. Let's not forget that. Up until very recently, this team was pretty good. It's not even the fact that Fisher was unwilling to pay these guys. He didn't have to pay these guys, not for a while anyway. Oh, and by the way, the Rays, Pirates, Brewers, Orioles, small market teams, all of them thriving right now. Now we look at the state of the A's as it sits today. They're off to an abysmal 5-18 start. Of course, they won on national TV last night, but that's because they were playing the Angels, who love to crush the hopes and dreams of Trout and Ohtani. We're not out of April yet, and Oakland is already at a minus 100 run differential. They're off to their worst start in franchise history. Now, on the surface, it's easy to point at that and say, that's why fans aren't showing up. Of course they should move to Vegas. As a fan, let me tell you why we're not showing up. It's not because of that. It's because our owner does not care about the product that goes out onto the field. This whole time, Fisher and Manfred have been plotting to get the A's to Vegas and use this as a weapon to justify getting their way. Why would the fans support this man? The Coliseum not being a packed house is a total myth. I've been there many, many times when the house was completely packed. So packed, in fact, that they had to remove the tarps on Mount Davis, usually only reserved for NFL games. It's a much bigger stadium than any other stadium in the league by far. So it always looks emptier than it actually is. Trust me, there are plenty of true loyal A's fans. And Mr. Fisher, you've let them down. So emotionally, that's kind of where I'm at on this. And I went off on that rant all for me to just say that I'm actually low-key kind of thrilled that they're going to Vegas. You look at Oakland and you look at Las Vegas and you compare the two cities, and there really is no comparison. I mean, I love the East Bay. I love Oakland. Outside of the weather, Vegas takes the cake for me. It's from where I'm sitting, it's about a 3.5 hour drive to get to Oakland, and it's about a 5 hour drive to get to Vegas. The drive isn't that much worse, and there's so much more to do in Las Vegas than there is in Oakland. So, from an entertainment standpoint, strictly, there really is no comparison. If you have to leave the Bay, I am happy that it's Vegas. The city is becoming a sports mecca. All the sports betting lounges on the Strip, the Golden Knights, the Raiders, the Aces, Las Vegas Motor Speedway. The A's have their AAA team there, the Aviators, and the NBA is looking to expand there as well at some point. Now Major League Baseball is making its mark there, having the A's go from Oakland to Vegas. I don't think that it was done in a particularly scrupulous way, and that's why that I'm a little ticked off today. Manfred didn't do the fans justice. Fisher certainly didn't do the fans justice. But Oakland definitely didn't do enough to keep the team there. So I don't love the way that this happened. The fans have a right to be upset. But to be honest, this ain't my first rodeo. My football team upgraded cities about a decade ago when they left St. Louis to come down to Los Angeles. And they're far better for doing so. LA is the right city for the Rams. And I believe in time, Las Vegas will be the right city for the Athletics. Jackson, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me again, Jordan. It's a pleasure to always be here, and we get to talk shop and talk some sports. Let's do this.
Best thing about this week was the NBA playoffs. And this week had intense matchups in every single part of the bracket that you can look at. Let's start with the Heat and the Bucks. Now, if you would have told me that the Heat would be ahead of the Bucks 3-1 coming into today, I would have said Giannis would have been out all of those games. But the fact is, he returned on Monday, and the Heat still took it to him, and they still won, thanks in part to Jimmy Buckets. So Jimmy Butler had 57 points in this game, in game 4, to put the Heat up 3-1. Jackson, that is a Heat franchise record. That's more than LeBron ever got. That's more than Dwayne Wade ever got.
What's crazy about just the Heat in general is Jimmy Butler, when he gets into the postseason, that switch just gets flipped and he just goes off. We saw him in the bubble years ago, and you just remember that picture of him where he's just tired and he's just hanging over, just bent over, because you could see how hard he plays and continues to put out for his team on a nightly basis. And even though that they were just barely hanging in to even just make it from the play-in tournament, they're just wrecking shop right now, 3-1 over the Bucks, and it is surprising. But I still was thinking that the Heat going in earlier, whenever we were doing some other shows, just I know that how well the Heat had been playing, and then kind of was tapering off a little bit. But I knew if they just made it to the postseason, they'd still be able to perform. And they're doing this also without Tyler Hero. It's so shocking in general, because you would think that with how well Brooke Lopez has been playing, and Drew Holiday, and even having Giannis there, it's just it's the same old thing. The team that scores the most points, they win the game. Who would have thunk it?
Tyler Hero out with a broken hand. At least 6 weeks is what they're saying. Not likely to return in this playoffs, even if the Heat do have a deep run, which honestly could happen at this point. It's crazy to think how much Jimmy Butler is a different player in the playoffs. He said in his press conference that playoff Jimmy isn't a thing. It's a thing. On to the Grizzlies and Lakers, Jackson. This series, oh my God, this series. So we have someone who's trying to paint themselves out to be a villain, trying to paint themselves out to be the next Dennis Rodman or the next Draymond Green, when in reality, Dylan Brooks is more like the next Lance Stevenson. Honestly, he's trying to get in LeBron's head. I haven't seen tactics not work that well since Lance Stevenson. I don't know what this guy was thinking when he said he pokes bears, because After he said that, games 3 and games 4, he declined media availability. He doesn't want to take accountability for what he said. So to paint yourself as the villain and then to not respond when you lose, I don't know. I don't know if anyone's going to take him seriously past this year.
I don't think anyone's taking him seriously,
No.
and I'm not trying to be any way, shape, or form being disrespectful to villain Brooks, but I'm sorry, sir, you're soft right now if you don't wanna talk to the media. You're blaming the media for every single narrative. Well, you started to create the narrative by saying what you said, and the fact that the Grizzlies have been talking and talking throughout the year, wanting respect. "We're here. We're doing this." You're down 3-1. It's time to shut your mouth and play some ball. I'm not trying to be like, "Shut up and dribble," but let your game do the talking.
Yeah, that's a
You're about
totally
to go
different.
home.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say shut up and dribble, but I am saying it. But I'm not
No,
trying to say it. It's just play the game.
one thing I will say though, as far as the Grizzlies go, Desmond Bain is for real. This dude is legit. He's for real. He's helping his team as much as he can. Ja, I wish he wouldn't be so impulsive, so crazy on the floor. If he can find a way to just play simple, more fundamental basketball, I do think the Grizzlies can take game 5 easily. And then after that, we'll see. Probably the most intense series of all of them so far, if you can even say that a series is more intense than Grizzlies Lakers right now, is going to be Warriors Kings. Warriors were down 2-0, came back to go all the way up to 2-2. The ending of game 4 was ridiculous. And just like that, the Warriors are back in this thing. Now, the Kings still do have home court advantage. It's a best 2 out of 3 series now going forward. And the Kings will host game 5 and, if necessary, a game 7 as well. Now, I'm a little scared for the Kings because De'Aaron Fox is going to be out. If he comes back, Jackson, he's going to be hobbled. He's going to have a brace on his finger. Do we think the Kings still stand a chance in this series?
I don't know. I want to say yes. I was saying like that beam. I'm still riding with the Kings, but I'm scared right now because they could score, but they can't defend that well either. That's why these games between the Warriors and the Kings have been exciting because they've been high scoring, and especially game 4 going down to just the final seconds, a 1 point difference. But I don't know. It's too early to tell. I thought he was going to try to play through it. It's kind of a wait and see until game 5 starts.
Little bit of a surprise coming from the East. I thought this Knicks Cavs series was going to be pretty evenly matched all the way, but it looks like the Knicks decided to play defense. Either that or the Cavaliers decided not to score.
Everyone in New York, they're just getting ready for their parade. We're going to advance for the first time in a long time. They're looking forward to it, and they're just going to sit there and wait until the next round. The Garden is hopping. Haven't seen it like that in a long time, so I give much respect to the New York Knicks fans and the Knicks for actually bringing some life back to the Garden.
It's a rabid fan base in a good way. These, like you said, these guys are just so ready to win a series. And honestly, they could move on past just the first series as well if they keep playing like this. I'm not gonna throw the Cavs away yet. Again, we won't know the results of game 5 until after this episode comes out. But the Knicks came to play. Jalen Brunson is putting on a show. He's just absolutely lighting it up. And man, I don't know what Dallas was thinking, but they look so foolish right now, seeing how he's playing in this playoff series. So, just looking at this series and looking at the Heat Bucks series, it's just assuming that the teams that are down don't come all the way back to win, and that the team who's up 3-1 moves on. The Heat and the Knicks would play in round 2, and one of those teams would be in the Eastern Conference Finals. Wouldn't have said that at the beginning of the playoffs, but it's pretty crazy to think about. One of these teams is going to move on to the Eastern Conference Finals, barring 3-game comebacks from either of these teams. So kind of the opposite of that. One series that I thought was going to be pretty intense, but has actually turned out to be sort of lackluster, is going to be Clippers Suns. And the big factor for that is that Kawhi Leonard is going to be out for this game as well. He's injured. We've seen it before. Dude gets hurt a lot. And whether or not he's actually injured, I believe he is. I don't think he would sit out a game this intense. But we've seen it before where his team has needed him in big moments and just can't play through it. Now, I'm not saying any athlete should ever be forced to play through any kind of injury. Of course not. If you're hurt, you're hurt. Take your time. But it's just the fact that he has this history, the fact that he's been known not to show up when he doesn't want to. It's a little disheartening. And yeah, I think we all expected the Suns to win this series, but I just wish I would have seen a little bit more fight out of him and the Clippers in general.
It doesn't help either that, Paul George is out. I was really looking forward to seeing both of them together finally in a playoff series. And just the fact that you have CP3, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker playing for the Suns, that is a nice big three right there. And I know for a fact that it's going to be the Suns in the Western Conference Finals, maybe even in the NBA Finals, just because they just have the intangibles just to get it done.
That was my pick at the beginning of the tournament. Just seeing the craziness in the East, though, not so much in the West, but in the East. I don't know. I'm not really super confident in any team right now, especially since it looks like their matchup in round two is going to be Denver, and Denver's been playing lights out. But I am proud of the Timberwolves for at least forcing a game five. I don't think there's any way they win this game tonight. I mean, I'm going to look pretty foolish if they end up winning, but I do think that the Nuggets are going to take game five. I love to see that there was no quit in these guys, especially after a tumultuous end to the season for them. Obviously, these guys care about each other. This team cares about each other in general. It's just, you don't want to let little things like that affect you. It clearly did, but to see the way that Ant has been playing, that there's no quit uh in Gobert and Anderson and Cat, even though Cat I think has been fouling way too much to help his team out very much. I like to see that there's a little bit of fight in them. That being said, I'll take the Nuggets tonight.
I'm right there with you. It's just the Nuggets have been playing sound, fundamental basketball, and the Joker is just insane. Obviously, we know that by the way everything has been going with the narratives that Joel Embiid's going to be the MVP, but just the way that Joker, the Joker has been playing all season, you can easily make a bid on why he should also be winning his third straight MVP.
Hawks and Celtics is going on right now as I'm recording. It was close. Looks like Boston went on a little bit of a run right now. It's just before the half. They started pulling away a little bit. At the moment, I'm looking at 57-48. Okay, he missed. Yeah, 57-48. If Boston closes out this series, we will have our first matchup of the conference semis. It will be Philly and Boston in round two. That series is going to be interesting. While I do think these are two of the best teams in the NBA in general, Boston had their number pretty handily in the regular season.
This is true, but for the narrative sake of everything, I'm going to put on my hat as a Houston player hater. Hello.
He's back.
Hi, Boston. Just want to let you know you're not going to make it past that.
You can't.
The 76ers are going to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Philadelphia 76ers are going to the NBA Finals. And then they're going to lose the NBA Finals because guess what? They have to get the golden sombrero of four major sport teams losing a championship within a 12-month span. We want that golden sombrero. I want that golden sombrero.
You are the Houston player hater. Has there ever been a golden sombrero that you can remember of a city just getting absolutely dumped on in championships like this?
Well, no, it doesn't really happen that often. That's why it's going to be so delicious.
Oh, it's amazing how much hate you have for that city, and I know it's overplayed.
It's not hate.
It feels like it. It feels like there's just a raging fire coming from within because of the World Series.
Not just the World Series. Just their fans are so mean to people. That's all. They threw deep batteries at Santa Claus. What did Santa Claus do? Brought you coal because you threw deep batteries at him. Stop. Stop.
This is Jackson's villain origin story, ladies and gentlemen. A couple days ago, we saw that the Jets finally traded for Aaron Rodgers. So they swapped 13 for 15. So I thought it was going to maybe be a little bit more intense. Obviously, we don't know what Rodgers' plans are beyond this year. We do know he's going to play for the Jets this year. So there is a conditional pick next year that turns into a first round if Rodgers plays over 65% of the snaps. You guys still with me? I'm not. I don't know what I'm talking about at this point. It was a weird trade. We knew it was going to happen, and it's finally in place. I do think this helps the Jets. It catapults them to being one of the most likely top 5 teams in the AFC with the way that roster's stacked, especially on defense.
He's leaving the NFC where it's so easy to win, and you're going to the AFC where you have Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. Josh Allen's in your same division. You have Justin Herbert. I'm just looking around at the AFC, and it's just stacked with quarterbacks. You have Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. We don't know what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson.
Well, Aaron Rodgers is one of the more tough people to predict what his next move is going to be. Just anytime he's ever done anything in the NFL, it's always been super hard to see where he's going with it, why he's doing it. He has a reason for everything he does. I think he put himself in a good position on this team. Yeah, it's kind of stacked with quarterbacks, but I look at a lot of these rosters, they don't have near the kind of defense that the Jets have. I do think Rodgers does make the Jets the favorite in that division right now. It's a long offseason, and we haven't yet to get to the draft, so we'll see. But early on, I do like this move for the Jets. And for Rodgers, too. All that to say, let's draft. So Jackson and I decided to do something a little bit more on the game show side of things for y'all. We're going to do an on-air mock draft. Now, here's how it's going to work. The picks 1 through 10, I'm going to be taking the odd picks. Jackson's going to be taking the even picks. No, I didn't just take the number 1 pick because it's my show. I wanted to give Jackson his own team, so I gave him the Houston Texans. So we don't know what each other are thinking. And to make it just a little less chaotic, we're not actually going to do trades. I thought about it. And I do think there are going to be some trades in that top 10. But just for the sake of simplicity, we're going to go 1 through 10 as it's listed at this moment. And with the number 1 selection in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama. Bryce Young.
Oh, no.
Oh, did you have him going to the Texans?
No.
So I do think that Bryce Young is the most pro-ready quarterback in this draft. I think the only thing that I'm really hearing about him is the size that might be a little bit of a factor, his durability throughout a long tenure in the NFL. But I think he is the most talented quarterback in this draft. I don't think it's particularly close. After that, I think you've got Stroud, Richardson, Levis, and the other guys following pretty significantly far behind where he is. So I think it just makes the most sense. I think Carolina is in a very winnable division. I think Bryce can play right away. The only concern I have with Carolina is they dumped all of their huge weapons. They no longer have DJ Moore. That's the price they had to pay to get that number 1 pick. Obviously, they're without CMC as well. So a lot of it is going to fall on his shoulders. But I do like Frank Reich. I do like some of the hires that they've made at coaching in this organization. And I do think that they're probably going to make some noise. They may not make the playoffs, but they'll make some noise in the NFC South this year.
All right. With Bryce Young off the table, the Houston Texans are on the clock. All the talking that has been going on over the last couple days, they're going to take either CJ Stroud, they're going to take Will Levis. I'm sorry, everybody. But with the number 2 pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Will Anderson from Alabama.
I like it. I like it.
I'm just going to name a couple people off in the Houston Texans history. Jadeveon Clowney, Brian Cushing, Whitney Merciless. Last year, Derek Stingley. Oh, yeah, a guy by the name of J.J. Watt. Whenever the Texans have an early first round pick, they've always done well drafting defensive players. And you brought in D'Amico Ryans as your new head coach. I'm sure that if Bryce Young was available, they were going to draft him. But this is just a better pick for D'Amico Ryans, especially finding that piece who could be playing linebacker or playing an edge, kind of like a Micah Parsons type. Unless crazy trades happen. And if Bryce Young does go number one, it's going to be Will Anderson, my pick, number 2 to the Houston Texans.
Okay, Will Anderson off the board. That takes us to Arizona. This might surprise a few people, but again, because I think the Cardinals are going to go back, I think there's going to be a little bit less availability. So this is who I think that they'll take. With the number 3 pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Christian Gonzalez, quarterback out of Oregon. Dude's a stud. What can I say? He's the best corner in this draft by far. I don't think that anyone comes close to him. I think you do have a couple of guys behind him. You have Witherspoon, you have Porter, but Christian Gonzalez is the best corner in this draft. This team needs a lot of pieces in a lot of places. The way that people are wanting out of there, I don't think that you necessarily go after the traditional kind of guy. You go after the guy who you think is the best available in the draft. And at this point, I think it's Christian Gonzalez.
Indianapolis Colts, 4th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. I'm going to take CJ Stroud. You're going to get CJ Stroud in there. You can see how well he's played, especially just go back and watch the Georgia game. Just how he was just airing it out and continuing to just pile on. He's good. They have good receivers over there. And obviously the Colts, they need to do some restructuring, but they need a quarterback. And CJ Stroud will fit their needs, especially since he's still one of the other quarterbacks that has a first-round grade.
Let me go ahead and move on to Seattle with the number 5 pick. And I think this is a pretty interesting one. One of their biggest positions of need that's listed is quarterback. I don't think that the Seahawks are going to disrespect Geno Smith. I think they know what happened the last time somebody wrote him off. They knew that he ain't right back, though. So I don't think Seattle is going quarterback here. I think they signed him to a 3-year deal out of good faith. They know what he brings to the table. They know that this team clicks with him firing on all cylinders. They have huge areas of need on that defensive line. We know that Pete Carroll is good at handling big personalities and guys who have been in a little bit of trouble in the past. So, that being said, I think that with the number 5 pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Seahawks, yes, I'm going to do it. The Seahawks are going to take Jalen Carter, the Georgia Bulldog.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that they need a lot of help on that defensive line, and I think that Jalen Carter is probably the most talented defensive lineman that's available in the draft. But I do think that because of his off-field issues, he's been pushed back a little bit. But I don't think the Seahawks are scared to take him here.
That is a huge question about the off the field stuff, but I don't have an issue with you taking Jalen Carter with the number 5 pick. I like it. And I think we're going on a little bit of a run right now because just think we might be going for another defensive player. So for the Detroit Lions, who got this pick from the Los Angeles Rams with the 6th pick in the NFL draft for the 2023 season or 2023 league year, they're going to take Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech.
I like it.
I'm just seeing like a Mathis Freeney situation going on from Indy, just having just 2 good dominant defensive ends, just pairing well with each other. I like it. That's what I'm going to stick with.
This is an interesting pick. The Raiders. So here's what I'll say about the Raiders. Historically, they reach in drafts. Historically, they don't draft based on need. Historically, their first round pick is gone within the next couple years. And I think it's an interesting pick because there are a lot of defensive players that can help them. Defense is obviously their big area of need, but I think that they want to go for the splash. I don't love the pick, but if I'm the Raiders GM, this is the way I'm thinking, that historically this is how the Raiders draft. So with the number 7 overall pick in the 2023 NFL draft, get ready to boo me, Raiders fans. The Las Vegas Raiders select Will Levis, quarterback, Kentucky. And it's not that I hate Will Levis or anything like that. I just think that he's enough of a reach to where it's such a Raiders pick that I think that's the way they're going to go. I know they have Jimmy G, but I know they're looking at a lot of these quarterbacks in the draft. And if Will Levis is still available at number 7, I think that's the route they're going to go. He's a very athletic quarterback with a big arm. I think that that's a spot where they're going to try to love him and mold him. The new New England Patriots of Las Vegas, there's your pick.
I swore I started to smell burnt toast. What? I would have taken Anthony Richardson over Will Levis if that's a Raider pick, because Al Davis is turning in his grave right now because he would have taken Anthony Richardson because of his speed. What is wrong with you?
Al Davis ain't here, man. Has Mark Davis made a decision Al Davis would have approved of?
I'm not 100% sure.
I don't think Al Davis would have approved of a move to Vegas.
Just win, baby. Just win. Falcons have a lot of needs. And with a certain quarterback off the board, I think that it would be fitting for the Atlanta Falcons to actually draft a quarterback. So that is why I am taking Anthony Richardson from Florida. You need a franchise quarterback. You haven't had one since Matt Ryan. And you tried Marcus Mariota last year. You have Desmond Ridder. You're going to try it out. Get some excitement back there. Get someone like a Michael Vick whenever you had him so many years ago. Someone who can run and who can throw. Get an exciting, get an offensive player that you can get your fans to root for.
Now we're down to the number 9 pick, the Bears. The Bears did trade back to get this pick, obviously giving up the number 1 overall pick. And I think that they pretty much slam dunked this as far as the position in the draft, because I have a player that's of obvious need to them that's by far the best at the position that hasn't gone off the board at this point. And it's pretty shocking to me that he's still available. So the number 9 overall pick, the Chicago Bears select Peter Skoronski, offensive tackle, Northwestern.
Nothing wrong with that.
Dude's by far the best at his position. I do think they need better help on the offensive line to help protect Justin Fields. He now has weapons all over the field, so that's not an issue for him. They do need a little bit of help on defense, but at this point, with the names that are already gone, I'm totally okay with them upgrading at the O-line.
And with the 10th pick, the Houston player hater returns, picking for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles don't have that many needs. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and try to draft one of the best players available.
They have a pretty glaring one. Let's see.
Let's get another weapon for Jalen Hurts. Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, he did it.
I was doing it.
I knew it. I knew you were going to do that.
Some Bijan mustard up in there. Bijan, he was on Dan Patrick earlier this week. Bijan's been talked to by the Buccaneers and the Eagles. So obviously where the Eagles are, I have a feeling that he's going to be the running back they're going to go after.
To be fair, I do think 10 is a bit of a reach for Robinson, but he is by far the best running back in this draft. It's not close. He's the only one that I can honestly see going in round 1.
You can use him kind of like a Deebo Samuel. He can play in the slot. He can play out the backfield, especially in an RPO offense with Jalen Hurts. It'll be amazing.
Jackson, always good to have you on, my brother. Thanks for coming on the show this week.
Thank you for having me. Do I need to get my hat back? Do I need to put the player hater hat back on? Or
well, speaking of hats, I do want to remind you You said if Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets, you would eat your hat. So you either got to make an edible hat or you got to digest something you weren't meant to digest.
I'll make an edible hat.
All right, got to see it. Guys, thanks for joining us this week from Southeast Texas to Central California.
I'm sad.
Viva Las Vegas. Peace out.
Later, guys. Why'd you got to do that to me, man? I forgot all about that.
I was totally going to leave it alone, and then you said hat, and I was like, oh, no, I got to get him on there.
That's good.